Haiti borders with the Dominican.
Her name is Serena Buffalino. They call her Mrs. B, and her class always begins with a pledge.
Something local, something global. Haiti.
They're words that carry weight here. Helping yourself means helping others, giving back, here and a world away in Haiti.
And nobody's helping them, except for people like us.
It was through her the class learned of Haiti, of the nearly 1 million orphans, many with no school, no support, no Mrs. B in their lives.
They could not wrap their head around that.
Mrs. B's students are among Toronto's most at risk. Their challenges vary from emotional and behavioral difficulties to learning disabilities. Their trauma is so severe they can't function in a regular school setting, and we aren't allowed to show most of their classmates.
For most of the kids, most of society has turned them away. And in this classroom, they're accepted. They're accepted no matter what for who they are.
Take Yolanda. She came here last year so burdened and withdrawn, she would often fall silent, sometimes for days on end. It was, she says, Mrs. B's patience, her quiet encouragement, that saved her.
She actually saves people's lives from dangers.
And perhaps that's why these marginalized kids feel such a kinship with the orphans of Haiti, and why they were moved to act.
And so when Yolanda and Jackie and Patrick said, well, Miss B, we need to build them a school.
Build a school, no easy task. They started out raising money. They sold samosas, washed cars, screened movies, you name it. And in just a few months, this little class raised $20,000. So much, it's not just a one-room schoolhouse they can build, but a full 3-story school. And so Mrs. B set off on a journey she'd dreamed of, up into the dusty mountains above Port-au-Prince to a town called Canaan. It's home to thousands of earthquake refugees who live with no running water, no electricity, and no school, until now. The first step was a temporary school. It's up and running, 53 students already in uniform. The permanent school for 250 is growing from its foundations.
It makes me want to cry because she just makes me feel so awed, and I'm very proud of her.
All of this because of a handful of students back in Canada and Mrs. B, the teacher who believed in them.
These are for you.
At another fundraiser, a special tribute to the students, accepted by someone who without Mrs. B might not be here.
They believe in me and I believe in them, and together we not only change our lives, but we change the world around us.
For inspiring great things and seeing the potential in everyone, Serena Buffalino is this week's Everyday Hero.
This is the reason why I do what I do, is because of Yolanda and all the
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Time to Shine Happiness Show. I am one of your co-hosts, and my name is Barbara Ellison. And my favorite co-host, of course, Barb Beckley, she has some other things that she had to do this morning. And so she is still doing the back of the house things. But you are on the Time to Shine Happiness Show, where we are on a mission to make happiness the norm rather than the exception. Because I truly believe that people deserve to live happy, healthy, financially free, abundant lives. And that is why I am so excited to have our special guest this morning, my good friend and buddy, Ann Metcalf. Welcome, Ann, to the show. How are you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Barbara. And thank you so much for having me back on your happiness show.
You know, one of the things, like we just talked about, I'm on a mission to make happiness the norm, and part of happiness is being healthy. And that is one of the things I myself have been in the wellness space. Oh, brother, more years, more years than I actually care to admit. And just over the years have tried so many different products, so many different companies, had good success with some, not so much with others. Tried some that tasted really good, some that tasted, oh brother, I would gag them down. But you know what? Hasn't wellness come such a long way in the last 30 years? I mean, I started out in wellness when people looked at me and, you're doing what? And they just wouldn't even listen. Wouldn't it had just absolutely no, oh no, I go to my doctor. I mean, and people are still like that. And yet I'm finding that more and more people are open to knowing that wellness is not just about what's going on physically. It's also about what's going on emotionally and mentally and spiritually. It's that we can embrace the whole body, mind, and spirit. And that's why you and I just have connected, that because it's so much fun when you find somebody that feels the same way that you do and that you can talk about it. And just and my one of my things is that, you know what? My purpose is to serve God, to learn, and then to teach what I learn. And so that's where you come in. So you're going to teach us today about a new word for me called adaptogens. And up until a few months ago, what was an adaptogen? So I had no clue, but have learned it. I've learned two new words in the last few months, which is adaptogens and then autophagy. And it was like, what is this? But you know what? The research is showing that these two things are absolutely essential for good health, good physical health, but they also help with your mental health, your brain workings.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
and first of all, tell us about you and who you are and how you got into the wellness space for yourself.
Well, Barbara, probably started 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I developed a condition called sarcoidosis. And it started with a cold and a cough that wouldn't go away, and then CAT scan going, oh, you've got scar tissue forming in your lungs. And my doctor really didn't know anything about sarcoidosis, so I hit the internet research, and a lot of people who are on it get treated with prednisone. And my first career was a registered nurse, and I'm going, nah, I don't think I want to do that. And sort of in that path of me learning all these different modalities, the spiritual aspect of ourselves and sort of the emotional and all those things, I'm going, no, that kind of messes with things. And I was a nurse, so I was fully embracing the traditional medicine, the modern medicine. And so I went onto a raw food diet, and that was something totally new to me and everybody else around me. But, the universe, God provides you with people that you need to come in to serve you. And so I went on raw food. Actually, it was for a few years, but it was after the first year that the sarcoidosis was basically, my body healed itself.
Right.
And now I realize that it was a plant-based diet that I was on that brought my body into this balance, and it knew how to fix things. And the whole sarcoidosis thing, it's called autoimmune. Well, now, like you're learning, all the new research is pointing that just about everything, unless it's a specific genetic disorder, it comes from inflammation from the gut
Right.
or digestive system. And when it's inflamed, that inflammation well, we are this whole complete body, body, mind, and spirit. And so what is affecting us in one spot isn't just that one spot. It's not just the gut. It's the whole body, and it affects the brain and our mental function. I mean, the research is just incredible, and it's just a beautiful unfolding of knowledge that we didn't know up until now.
Right. Right. Like one of the things that I have been hearing just in the last couple of months is that they're establishing that there's diabetes 1, there's diabetes 2, but now there's diabetes 3. And the diabetes 3 is because our brain itself, our brain that's here in that's our intellect and our mood and our stress and our memory are all, our brain itself is not handling the glucose levels. And that's what diabetes is an imbalance of your glucose levels. And your brain itself is not handling the glucose levels. And that's why dementia and Alzheimer's and all of these brain disorders in kids is all coming, and they're now, I just heard this like a month or so ago, that they're now labeling it diabetes 3.
Fascinating.
And it has
Wow.
been fascinating to hear all of the new research. And when you're involved in a company that has major research people, that's what they do, it's like, oh, we hear about it. And I'm like, but now it's becoming much more and more and more mainstream. Has some of the Western, doctors are seeing the research that it's coming out, and they're going, oh, maybe we need to look at this.
Yeah, absolutely. And
And
actually, there's another issue with the diabetes. You've got this diabetes 3 you just talked about, and there's this hidden pre-diabetes that I was reading in a recent article, and it could well be the new epidemic around the world because people don't know that they have it.
right, there's no symptoms.
There's no
There's
symptoms.
there's no symptoms.
Although, if we were to really tune in to that intuitive knowing
Right.
and listening to the signals, and it could be just as simple as just like a slight skin rash or just a little muscle tweak or something,
Mhm.
and you just, that's nothing.
Right.
And we need to listen to those little signals because our body is this
Mhm.
incredible communication system.
Right. Like I look back on my history back when I was in my early 40s, and at that point in my life, I realized that there were days when I could hardly walk. I had a headache every day and just figured that was normal. I used to drive. I drove a shift, and I used to drive because my sinuses were so bad, and I have to and had to wear glasses, of course, to drive. I would drive like this, holding my glasses off of my nose with my, this is so dangerous. Holding my glasses off of my nose because my sinuses were so bad, steering with my elbow and shifting.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. I look back on that and how did I do that? And yet, at the time, if you had told me that all of those things were directly related to nutrient deficiencies, I would have looked at you and went, no, just take a Tylenol. But then I was introduced to wellness.
Yeah.
And within the first year, it took, it doesn't happen overnight. You did not get the way you are overnight. And it doesn't change overnight. So it took probably about a year, but I just noticed that my daily headache went away. I haven't had a migraine now in, oh, I don't remember the last time I had a migraine. It's been years and years and years. I feel better now at 71 than I did at 42. I have no problem with my joints, and it has been just an amazing journey. And every year, it has become more and more, wow, that I'm now 71. And one of the things that in these last few months, talking about adaptogens is what's going on in your brain and how your brain handles stress and mood and stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about. And since then, since I've got these the new research that has come out about this diabetes 3, and and I have Alzheimer's in my family and dementia in my family. And so that was something I was really concerned about. So when they told me that you'll have more mental clarity, I was like, okay, fine, I'm going to try this. And I'm so glad I did, because it has, in the last few months, I'm sharper. I'm noticing more mental clarity. And it's like, oh, wow, I can't wait to see a year from now, 2 years from now, 20
Yeah,
years from now.
absolutely.
And I just want to ask you a question. One of the things that I heard, oh, gee, maybe last year, that they're saying that they are now going to be able to double the life expectancy in the next, by the year 2035. And that's only what, 13 or 14 years from now. Have you also heard that, seen that in your research? That's one of the things that I've been saying, that I've been noticing, that they're saying that we are going to be able, because of all of this new research and the new technology and these new adaptogens and the research that has gone into proving that they're effective.
I haven't actually sort of read any of that research. I've heard it from you
Yeah,
and just kind of hints of it. And just
right,
from the different reading I've done, kind of just over the past, is that our bodies were built to last and us live and thrive way longer than we are right now.
right,
And I think the stressors that sometimes we put our own stuff through the stressors, but there's environmental stressors, and all those things impact, as you were explaining with your not so healthy body, 30 years ago,
yeah,
and now with that new awareness. And I think that's why you're seeing so many people interested in fitness and in health, and they don't want to see or be those shortened, stressful lives of their parents, because they know that, if we've got this capacity to double our age, and I know some people say, well, why would I want to live to be 120, 150? Well, maybe, if we're meant to live that long and thriving, it's not as if we're going to be walking around with canes,
right,
because as our body becomes just healthier and everything from our tip of our toes to our head and everything that's inside, if that's all functioning kind of what I call to that blueprint of perfection that
right.
we came in with. And then when we start adding those toxins, um, then yeah, it impacts the body and it wears it out. And so, yeah, this whole thing about adaptogens, I've just been learning about recently, and it's exciting, and it's like this divine gift. I mean, we're divinely designed. And this body, they sometimes refer to as the hunter gatherer, and our systems within our body, the whole digestive process, the enzymes, the hormones, and how one part of the body talks to the other. And it's all interconnected. And so that hunter gatherer that we are, and those systems are still working today. And then with this new knowledge from the plant realm, it's just it's beautiful, and it is a divine design that creation put everything on the planet for us to be here for this incredible experience. That each one has a different experience, and to be able to just and learn. And something that I've learned with my talk on adaptogens that I gave last week was that they've known about these adaptogens for thousands of years.
Right.
Right. They've known about it. And was there a little bit of trial and error as they tried one thing and it didn't work and they, okay, well, let's not have too much of that, or let's not have that in the evening because it's too stimulating. You know, they went through that whole process and now we've got their wisdom. And I guess, kudos to the science, because now it's actually proving scientifically, because we've got that technology to go into the cells and look at the neurons growing in the brain
Right.
when you have certain plant adaptogens.
Right.
It's just marvelous.
So just explain to us. So for our audience here, that I mean, I was just introduced to adapt the word, even just the word adaptogens. What are they? So give us a brief synopsis of what an adaptogen is, because we're going to be soon having to go to a break. So and then we'll come
Okay.
back to what they do. But just give us a brief overview of what they are.
Well, what they are is they're plants. They're plants and they're mushrooms, the fungi world. And they have the capacity to change things in our body so that it can handle stressors that we experience in our life. I mean, that simply put, that's what they are. They're plant. It's a plant, whether it's the root or the flower or the stem that gets um, ground up, and the mushrooms that you eat as the whole mushroom, or again dried, and they have this capacity to shift physiological things in our body,
Right.
which is wonderful. It's a miracle.
Right. You know, and last night I was on a call, and one of the doctors, he was talking about that one of his favorite things is dandelions. And we're like, but dandelions are a weed. Yeah, they are a weed, but they're a beneficial, but they're a plant. And that's what, and I can remember my grandmother, my dad's mom, I think, that she used to brew dandelion tea. And it was like, and she would drink it, and it was like, who would make tea out of dandelions? But you know what, they do, and they've proven that it is effective. Like I always liked spearmint tea, and yet now to get true spearmint tea, they've put it into blends, and so it's not always as effective. And I think that's what happens to so many things, that they take one little thing that's good and then they just either try to make it into a commercial, and without doing all of the due diligence of how much you need. And that's one of the things that I love about the company that I'm with now, is that they have done all their due diligence. What's the clinical trial? What was the amount used? What is the amount that you need? And now that they've done all the research, they're abiding by the research. And I think that is one of the biggest things, is that sometimes you get people that are looking at doing some of these things. They'll see, oh yeah, let's make a list. Oh gee, let's try dandelion tea. Okay, but how much of it do you take? Because you can have too much of a good thing too, and don't we always tend to overindulge sometimes?
We do, right? Yeah. Yeah.
If one pill is good, then two pills will be even better. And
Yeah, it doesn't always work that way.
but it doesn't always work that way.
No.
So which one is your favorite? Some of the ones that I have, like one of the ones that I have found is the ashwagandha.
Oh,
Just even saying the name is so fun.
totally. I'm totally with you there, Barbara. Yeah. And
No
do
idea
you know
what
what
it
it
is.
means? Do you know what ashwagandha means in
No idea.
Sanskrit?
I know the word.
Well, it's got to do with the strength and the smell of a horse.
Okay.
So when you take that, and I've been taking it recently because it's a really good stress. It's an adaptogen, so it allows us, you can be under some stress, but it assists you when you have that inner strength of that horse. It gets you through sort of that over that hurdle that you need to get through in your day.
Okay, now so is that let's talk about stress for a second. Now is that do these impact like the environmental stresses or just like the internal stresses? Like
That's a good
we all have
question.
stress,
Yeah,
like if we're on a deadline or something like that. But
yeah. It's a good question. I mean, from what I've just been learning, it's more sort of the well, it's the physical, mental stress
right, yeah,
um, that we're working with in our lives. So that
right,
it could be scheduling,
right.
or kids, or all those things that come in,
Interruptions and stuff.
those interruptions that affect us, and they affect us mentally because the brain goes, you get stressed out, and then this ashwagandha, it sort of gives you that inner strength to say, you know
Mhm.
what, I can do this. And something that I'll just mention it now is that these adaptogens take time. You know how it took you a year
Yeah,
to adjust to that new healthy lifestyle living? Well, these adaptogens can take weeks to maybe a couple of months for actually, because it's almost like a tincture. It's just taking a tincture of that
right,
plant.
right,
And maybe the rare person it will change within a few days or a week, but generally speaking, just allow it to and allow your body to adapt to it because that's what it is. It's adapting. We're learning to adapt to the sort of new knowledge, new information, and that plant and our body, they're sort of adapting to each other.
right,
It's this beautiful merging of this plant and its capacity
right,
to help our body just be calmer because it actually does physical things.
right. And that is so true. So many people are under so much stress and they don't realize that they're under stress
Yeah.
until all of a sudden it's like their body just stops them. They either have a headache or they get something. I mean, they have hypertension, and the thing is that so often that with I'm not picking on Western medicine. No, I'm not, because there's a place for both. There's a place for everything. But you know what? Their first impulse is to put on medication. Well, medication just masks the symptom.
Yeah.
It doesn't get to the root cause. And like with me, one of the other things that I used to have extremely bad leg cramps. And I would go from being sound asleep to being screaming awake. Um, and now they've shown that leg cramps are like it's potassium and magnesium. Who knew? And the thing is that we're not getting them in our food sources. That we must supplement our diet, and just it's finding the right medicine, the right, the absolutely the right combination of the nutrients, and like one of the things that I'm learning now too is about botanicals, the botanicals that we need in our gut to have the good bacterias, and so much of we don't have good bacteria in our body because it's not getting in ourselves, and because it's not getting in the plants that we're eating, the tomatoes and the carrots and all those kinds of things, and we're not getting the minerals because they're not being in the plants, because it's not in the soil.
Yes. Yeah. It comes down to that health of the
It's
soil.
right,
And I mean, we can choose organic, I mean, that's just the best thing we can do.
right,
But the farmers who, I mean, most of them know that all that source, that energy source, that life force is coming from the soil itself.
right.
Yeah.
And it just amazes me sometimes when you get somebody that really believes that, and it'll be like, oh, I can't wait for there to be a storm, and if the lightning hits the ground, they love when lightning hits the ground because it puts nitrogen into the ground.
Ah, I love that.
And it's like, yeah, and who knew? you know, and it was like, oh, you what? You want what? To lightning to hit the ground because it puts
Yeah,
pictures in.
that's a new one for me.
And what I live out in farm country, and the farmers talk about all sorts of things, and so it's just amazing. But you know what? We are going to be going to a half hour, not a half hour, but a station break just to take care of our sponsors. And that's something that we're going to be looking at. And we're going to be talking about your event that is coming up, the two events that are coming up. And we're going to stay tuned. Stay tuned to hear more from Anne and about some events that you can hear about what we're talking about. So stay tuned. And we are back. And welcome, welcome, welcome for those of you that are just joining us here on the Time to Shine Happiness Show. Welcome. And I would just want to thank our special guest, Ann Metcalf, good friend and buddy from Canada, fellow Canadian, although I do have to admit that I do live in the States. I live near Chicago. But I'm from Montreal and lives in Vancouver. And so has just been a great conversation about learning about how our bodies work, what adaptogens are. We just learned, that one of the things that I learned. I live in farm country. When I first moved out here, I knew nothing. But one day one of the farmers was saying, "Oh yeah, we had a lightning strike on the land, and that's so good for the land." And I'm like, okay, why? Well, it puts nitrogen back into the ground, and so we're always so afraid of sometimes the things in nature. And yes, you do not want your house to be hit by lightning, but we do want the ground to be hit by lightning. So that's one of the things every once in a while. It's like if there's a storm, let it hit the ground because it's good for the ground, and it's one of the acts of nature of how to put things back into the ground. But anyways, I don't want to forget to talk about your events that are coming up. So I am so excited about them. I think it's just going to be really good because people need more information about wellness, gut health. And so tell us about your two events that are coming up, where they are, when they are, and how they can get involved.
Oh, all right. Thanks, Barbara. Well, the first one coming up is called Restore Your Health, and it's Be the Best Version of You. And so it's online, as most things are these days. And so I've got coaches, experts. I'm call myself a gut advocate, and we are providing gifts for people to work to help them be that best version of who they are. Because sometimes we just need a little bit of extra help. Like we don't know things, we learn, and then we can sort of experience that. So there's a woman there that is talking, one of her gifts has got to do with your feet and how important the health of your feet are for the rest of your body.
Right.
And so there's one on mindfulness, because we need to we need that time to sort of tune in, to relax. And there's one's got a meditation for people. So these different gifts. One woman's providing 108 recipes that she has actually collected and made herself over 15 years.
Wow.
And so that they're all a little different. Some are food related, and some are for our mental wellness, because that's part of it. You cannot separate
You
the
can't separate
body.
them.
You can't separate it. It's all one. And so that's happening on, there's a pre-registration November 4th, and then the actual giveaway is November 8th to the 14th.
Yeah,
And so
cool.
I
And
will give you the linking and the information for your guests to basically sign up, and then you can choose which ones of those that you want um, to take. So it's free, and
always a good price.
it's always a good price. And these people, these contributors, they're coming from their heart, and they really want people to be their best, to thrive. It's not
Right,
about surviving anymore. You know,
right.
if we want to double our age, then the whole concept of us
Yeah,
thriving and
yeah,
just feeling alive. So that's the
right.
first one coming up. So that's coming up pretty quick. And the second one is I'm hosting a mini summit in November 22nd. And I've got guests that'll be, oh, I'm just so honored and thrilled that they will be talking on the summit. And one's on our teeth and how important, um, and the issues of when we get our teeth pulled, root canals, and how
Oh,
parasites and bacteria sit in the jawbone.
oh wow.
It creates little cavities in the jawbone, and that impacts our health. Like Crohn's, if you can deal with those parasites up here, this one doctor, she's a dentist, has been able to get that person to heal their body, heal themselves through
Wow.
natural means rather than taking pills. And
Right.
so it to me, it just really um, super exciting. And this other woman is talking about lymph and how our the lymph system is
Right.
key. It's, I mean, there's many important keys, like our gut health is
Right.
really important, as you know, and your researchers know.
Right.
And the lymph system is totally connected to that.
Right.
And so I'm just really excited about that. It's also just online, and it's a 24-hour kind of live online events, pre-registered. Um, the interviews have been done ahead of time, so it's not live per
Right.
se.
But it's
Um,
pre-recorded, so anyone can listen to it anytime.
well,
Cool.
it is. It's only up for 24 hours.
Yes.
And then
Okay.
for a small amount of money, you can get those recordings. And there's
Okay.
lots of VIP package so that the speakers are providing sort of little extra gifts for
Oh,
people. Yeah,
always nice to hear.
it is. Yeah, because they've got this expertise to share, and that's what they want to do
Right.
because they
And
want
that
us to feel.
people and that people need to know. You know, and
Yeah,
that's I mean, probably anybody listening to this show, if you've been listening for any amount of time, you know, one of my favorite sayings is that you don't know what you don't know until someone tells you something that you don't know.
exactly.
And that is where let's wait, like with me, up until a couple of months ago, I had never heard the words adaptogens or autophagy. And autophagy just means it's your body is self-eating. When you can go into an autophagy state, which is done through intermittent fasting. And I have to admit, I was introduced to intermittent fasting probably 5 or 6 years ago and understood up here the benefits of it. Absolutely understood the benefits of it. Could never do it. I just literally physically could not do it. I just couldn't do a water fast for 3 days. I lasted maybe a day sometimes, but that's not long enough. When you get in now, they have now proven, and it has won a Nobel Prize. It is a Nobel Prize winning thing that they've discovered this autophagy. And you can look it up. It's AUTOPHAGY, autophagy. And it means self eating. And what it does when you get into that autophagy state, your body self cleans itself and gets rid of all the junk, all the broken cells,
Isn't
and
that
all
fantastic?
the ones that are already dead. gets rid of them out through your own system. And that's why you can get this more mental clarity. And this is where the research is showing that this diabetes 3 can be reversed. People can, because it's getting rid of the dead things in our bodies, getting rid of the dead cells in our bodies.
Yeah.
And it has been absolutely fascinating. That's why I'm so excited about your event, because you know what? Wellness is it's all connected. What's up here in our brain, in our mind, but what's here in our hearts, all of our muscles, every cell in our body is connected.
Yeah.
And I loved what you said about your feet.
Mm.
Every month I treat myself. Well, it's not a treat. It's actually to me, it's a medical procedure, but I go for a pedicure.
Mm. Lovely.
Yeah, it's a medical expense to keep my feet healthy. And that's what I'm telling myself anyways. But they do a thing on me. It's with hot rocks. And they massage my feet with my feet and my legs with hot rocks. What a difference it has made since I've been doing it.
And for one thing, Barbara, I mean, it's totally relaxing. There's that meditation for you, because meditation is just being sort of in that quiet space. And the other thing too that I've been learning about with this, the lymph systems, they're all over the body. They're behind our knees, they're around our ankles. So when you're getting that massage, they're actually working on getting the lymph flowing, because the lymph also helps eliminate toxins.
Oh, is that why? Because like when I come out from after my pedicure, it's like, oh wow. And I have to admit, there's been a couple of times, the chair is really comfortable. Mm. Hey, oh, I've taken a nap. After they have finished and I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden, you're just, you're relaxed and you're just sitting there. And then all of a sudden you wake up and go, ooh, what time is it? And you look at your watch and you're like, 20 minutes has gone by or half an hour have gone by. And the other day, two of my friends and I, we all go. And so the other day, Jen and I were talking. I'm going to tell on Sherry, and she's going to hear this. Anyways, we looked over at Sherry because they were done with her first, and she was gone. And we were like, okay, so I'm not the only one that it is so relaxing and it is so good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to share with you, especially ladies, self-care is not selfish. Self-care is essential. Take care of yourself. And if that means that you treat yourself to a pedicure or a manicure, whatever it is that you do, go for a massage, whatever you do, because you know what? You cannot possibly give to someone else what you don't have yourself.
Absolutely.
Ah.
Yeah. And there's one more thing about the autophagy thing with the flushing, because the intermittent fasting, and another doctor calls it a time released fasting. And so it is in that time period, but something else is happening when you're sleeping. Because I mean, I kind of practice my own form of fasting. So after dinner, I just make it a rule not to snack until I get up the next morning. So I've got 12 to 14 hours where the whole body and the brain gets flushed. And what's happening in the gut is that there's these gorgeous little bacteria called Akkermansia.
Oh, a new word. Okay. I love new words.
And I'm just I'm in love with them too.
Say it again.
It's Akkermansia. I think it's A-K, Acker, E-R-M-A-N-S-I-A, or close to that. And they're a bacteria that reside only in your colon. And at nighttime, when the whole body is going through that process of cleansing and the blood flowing and all those things that the research is showing, these little Akkermansia start chewing away in a good way at the mucosal lining in your colon. And what that does, they chew away at it at nighttime, and it helps the mucosal lining to basically refresh itself. So as some of those cells are being sort of munched up, it's creating new cells, and that mucus lining is a incredible defense system for the health of our body.
Wow.
So
Wow.
really,
I'm gonna have to
really,
look that up.
yeah. So that was something that came in my research, and I go, whoa. So
Mm.
you
See,
don't know.
who knew? You don't know until somebody tells you something you don't know. I did not know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
I think of that, and I sometimes, once in a blue moon, I'll have something. I mean, I do have on occasion. I have this Ayurvedic um, boiled milk at bedtime with spices in it, and those
Mhm.
spices are adaptogens, like the
Right.
turmeric and the cinnamon and the coriander. They all assist
Oh.
with digestion,
Mhm.
and it also helps with sleep. But you need to boil the milk a little bit. That's
Right.
the sort of the traditional Ayurvedic way, and that removes the proteins that affect people with the digestion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Is that like I can remember my grandmother, she would always say, "Oh, have a glass of warm milk before going to bed."
yeah, yeah. And
You know, and
that
I
one,
always thought it was just an old wives' tale.
yeah,
But it's not. But the thing is though, sometimes back in the day, there were those things that they knew, from that they had healers that had that instinctive. But now it is so nice to see the science is proving some of these old remedies actually work,
yeah,
are actually beneficial, and
yeah,
they're putting them into practice. That hey, and then taking it to the next step further.
yeah. And this, I think it was way before Hippocrates. It was in Ayurvedic, which is a 5,000 year, and it was all about food being thy medicine,
Right,
and medicine being thy food.
right,
And even with the plant realm, to go into that trusting and sort of testing yourself, is this for my highest good? I mean, because some plants, if you take too much, and that's
right,
what your research is showing,
right,
it kind of gets beyond the adaptogenic
right,
and can be harmful, and especially if you're on medications. That's what
right,
I always
right,
talk about. If you're on medications, make sure you talk over with what you want to add to with your
right.
health practitioner.
Right. And one of the things that I will say that if you are thinking about putting in some natural things, don't ask your, this makes me crazy. So don't ask your doctor's permission. Ask him to monitor you. That this, I want to add some natural things to try and get myself off of all of this medication. And that's one of the things that when I first started, how I really got into the wellness space. I had a sinus infection and they gave me, and it was causing the medication that they gave me irritated my stomach, so they put me on something to settle my stomach, and that gave me a yeast infection. And so then they gave me something for the yeast infection, and that offset what was going on in my sinuses. So 5 months later, I still have the sinus infection, and now I'm on like 4 medications, and and it was like I finally looked at my doctor and I said, there has got to be a better way. This
Yeah,
is not helping.
yeah,
There's got to be a better way. And that's when I actively started researching about alternatives, about wellness products, nutritionals, getting into the nutraceuticals rather than the pharmaceuticals.
yeah,
And if you are at that point where you are ready to take charge of your health, reach out to either Ann or myself. We can get you started, but also reach out to your health professional and have him monitor you to say, hey, I want to get off some of these medications because of the side effects.
yeah,
I remember one of the medications that I took, and I don't remember the name of it. And I came home one day and I said to David, David, there's something wrong. I'm like a basket case. I'm afraid. I feel this anxiety. And he said, well, maybe it's the new medication. So luckily, he said that to me. He checked the side effects of the medication. And right on the very bottom, in very, very, very small print, it said, can cause psychological disturbances. He went, Barb, you're done.
Yeah.
That's it. You're done. And I was like, oh, yikes. And so if you're experiencing something, hey, reach out, get in touch with your doctor and say, hey, you know what do you know about alternatives?
Yeah.
Do you have nutraceuticals? And if you don't, find somebody who does. Anyways, so we are going to be coming up to the end of the show. I can't believe it has gone so fast. And I'll have to tell. Barb had said to me, do you want to do just a half an hour, or do you think that you want to do the full hour with Anne? And I said, no, Anne and I will do the full hour.
Absolutely.
Lots to talk about. We'll talk about adaptogens. We'll talk about our stories. We'll talk about her events. So anyways, so reach out to Anne. And how do people get in touch with you? Let's start with that.
Well, they can contact me via my email, which is rosiesjoy11, and it's ROSIES, joy11 at gmail.com. And if they want some quick videos, information, if they go to my app, and that's called Authentic Sacred Design, I've got
And that's in the App Store.
it should be in the App Store, Android
Store.
and iPhones. And you don't have to, it's free. And I've got things on the gut microbiome, healthy body, healthy mind. So there's all sorts of things where if they just want to sort of pick and choose, they can.
As a starting place. If all of this is just like, ooh, this is Greek to me, that you have no clue of what we're talking about, or if you're just getting started, or you want to know a little bit more information before you make a decision, hey, go into Anne's app. I have it on my phone, and there has been some just great information about little things that on some of this research and some of the latest research that is going on. So,
and in my app, Barbara, I've got a reference directory, and I've got about 10 people there now. And there's a little video that goes with each person. They're experts in different health fields and feel good and different areas of health, and they can click on that. And so if they go, oh, I want to feel good about my workplace, or what is this Ayurvedic health about? And so they can do that a little bit. That's sort of a miniature library for them to find more people beyond what I'm offering.
Right. And and that's the thing. Do your due diligence. You don't have to take our word for it. For myself, as I said, I feel better now at 71 than I did at 42. And I am so grateful to the person that introduced me to the very first product that I really embraced and had such amazing results. And over the years, as I said, I've tried many of them. And my latest one that I just was introduced to with the more research that has just gone into all of the things that are now that we've talked about today. But you know what? You have to start somewhere. So start with a little bit of research and just reach out and get some information. It's all free before you make a decision. And we're going to be putting all these links in the show notes. So don't worry if you haven't got a pen or if you're driving or something. And you know what? If you want to see some other things on our show, this is the Time to Shine Happiness show. We're all about, leading happy, healthy, financially free, abundant lives. In fact, next week, we are going to be having on a gal. Her name is, and I can't say her last name, so I'm not even going to try. And it's called, her name, the name she uses is Anna in Style. And she is a brand expert. But what she's going to be talking about is, what does your profile picture say about you? So that is going to be, because I have to admit right now, my profile picture is a little bit older. And it's not totally what I want to say about me. So it's going to be interesting to say she's going to use me a little bit as a guinea pig and talk about what my profile picture is. And so that's going to be just a fun show. Anyways, and it was such a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for coming. Always good to hear and talk to somebody that is in the same realm and yet in different areas.
Yeah,
And yet we can all learn from each other.
absolutely. I'm
So,
honored to be here as well.
yeah. And so if you're listening to the show today, hey, leave us some love. Let us know. Share this out with people that you know. Because you know what? Next week, if you know somebody that's in business and wants to talk about branding for their business, hey, come and join us. We would love to have you. And so this is Barbara Ellison on behalf of the Time to Shine, and also thank you to the Diamond Factor Experience, Barbara Beckley, that she has put on and sponsors this show. And so this has just been an amazing time. We have been on this show. It was a year in June. So it has been just such a blessing to be on this show and to be able to work with people who feel the same way that I do. Is that, because we want to be our happiest self. And that's one of the things that I work with midlife women who are ready to take advantage of that, to get back their health, to be the best ever version of themselves, that well-toned, confident, highly paid version of themselves, because we all have it in us and we deserve it. We deserve it. So anyway, so we're out of time. Anyways, see you next week. And thanks again. And thank you, Barbara Beckley, for doing all the back of the house stuff that I do not know how to do. And I'm the first to admit that I don't know how to do it. And I am so grateful that she does. So anyways, we'll see you next week. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.